Imagine that everyone in the world who had brown hair had to pay more for things than people who had other colors. How unfair would that be? You can't help what color hair you have. Well, something like this is happening all around the world. People who have celiac disease have to pay 2 to 3 times more for food than people with gluten who can have gluten, according to an article by BIDMC of Boston. And I would know because I have been gluten-free for 10 years and my sister has celiac disease, so I have seen the prices personally of gluten-free foods. And the price it costs to be gluten-free must be equivalent to the price of people who can have gluten foods. First, it's unfair for people with celiac disease to be forced to pay more. Second, it's harmful to Americans. And third, our nation could be healthier if gluten-free foods were more accessible. So, it's unfair for people with celiac disease to be forced to pay more. People can't help being gluten-free. I know that it was kind of a fad a few years ago to just go gluten-free because it's better for you or whatnot. But there is something called celiac disease, and this is a condition that people can't help, and what my sister has. The Celiac Disease Foundation describes celiac disease as this in an article about what celiac disease is. They said, when people with celiac disease eat gluten, a protein found in wheat, rye, and barley, their body mounts an immune response that attacks the small intestine. These attacks lead to damage on the villi, small finger-like projections that line the small intestine that promotes nutrient absorption. When the villi get damaged, nutrients cannot be absorbed properly into the body. So, for people with celiac disease, eating gluten is extremely harmful to their bodies. And I got to see this with my sister when she was leading up to finding out about her celiac disease diagnosis. She had pretty extreme symptoms. She had terrible stomach aches. She would throw up a lot, and she even stopped growing. That is the levels that it was unhealthy for her to eat gluten. And that same article by the Celiac Disease Foundation about what celiac disease is reports that the only treatment for celiac disease right now is not eating gluten. So how is it fair for people who are forced into not eating gluten to have to pay more for something they can't help? We need to make gluten-free foods equal in price to gluten foods to make our nation more fair. Not only that, but not everyone has the cash inflow to support gluten-free diets. And that can be extremely harmful to Americans. An article about food insecurity within families who have celiac disease talked about how sometimes because of food insecurity, people who have to be gluten-free eat gluten because they can't support a gluten-free diet with its 2 to 3 times extra prices. It's pretty common to have a nut allergy, and imagine how bad it would be if people who had to not have nuts were forced into eating nuts because they can't support not having them. That would be extremely harmful to people. Well, that's kind of like what's happening with gluten-free. People are forced into eating gluten because they can't support a gluten-free diet. And at least we have one solution idea. A article by Macru and Cohen said that a substantial part of the price difference between regular and allergy-free foods comes from economics of scale. Regular products are manufactured in very large quantities, while allergy-free products involve much smaller quantities. So, if we normalize gluten-free foods and make more in bulk and have them more available, then it would lower prices and lower food insecurity. It's like gas prices. Think about it. If you have a lot of gas available, the price goes down. If you have a little bit in supply and demand, it goes up. So if there was more gluten-free products made, then the prices would go down potentially. So if we do that, it would not, and like if gluten-free foods were available, it would not only benefit those who are gluten-free, but it could also help our whole nation. Our nation could be healthier if gluten-free foods were more accessible. And gluten-free foods are usually paired with things that are more organic and clean. And the alternatives are usually healthier than things that are gluten. For example, one of my favorite brands is Simple Mills. And these are crackers that are made out of veggie flour. Of course, they're super, super expensive, but they have other things that are alternatives to like fish crackers and to Cheez-Its that are made out of good flours that are healthy for you. And so our nation could be healthier if there was more gluten-free foods available and lower prices. So the price it costs to be gluten-free must be equivalent to the price of gluten foods. First, it's unfair for people with celiac disease to be forced to pay more. Second, it's harmful to Americans. And third, our nation could be healthier if gluten-free foods were more accessible. The good news is people are trying to help. You can do. So reach out to help show that something needs to change, and imagine a world where prices are more fair and people healthier.